Republicans obviously have been extremely critical of President Obama's economic policies. Now, the stock market is roaring. We're at almost 3-year highs. The GDP is going to be reported out on Friday. It could come in at 4%, sir. Mr. Obama is going to take some credit for that in the State of the Union. What will your response be?
Well, I think he should take some credit for it. But on the other hand, if you look at the two ends of the country, the West Coast and the East Coast, they're all in real trouble. And then you look in the center, and in Illinois, they're really in trouble. A lot of it's caused by the federal government, the excessive spending, excessive taxes, and of course, a lot of it is caused by excessive unionization, where they have just built the costs of government so high on the state and local levels that, and I think the federal government has to take some of the blame for that as well.
Mr. Carper, on the other hand, when the stimulus was unveiled back in January 2009, the administration predicted a 7% unemployment rate 2 years hence. That is now here in early 2011. What about that aspect? Has that been a failure, the unemployment problem and the lack of a real jobs recovery?
Big companies in this country of ours is sitting on a pile of cash. One of the reasons why they're not spending that money and hiring people is because of uncertainty. What are we going to do about the deficits? What are we going to do about energy policy, transportation policy? Are we going to repeal health care? Are we going to change it? There's a huge amount of uncertainty. What we need to do is begin to address that uncertainty. I think the administration is making some progress. I think we're making some progress. I think the economy is coming back. But until we have better predictability, better certainty for particularly businesses large, but also small, we're not going to see the kind of takeoff that we need. But it's encouraging. A lot of positive signs right now.
If we don't get spending under control, we're going to double the deficit in 5 years, triple it in 10 according to the president's own figures. You know, when I did I did the only balanced budget amendment that actually came to the Senate floor back in 1997. Balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. At that time, we lost it by 1 vote. We had 66 votes in the Senate. We didn't have the 67. Since that time, the deficit has gone up 10 times. 10 times the amount then. And as you can see, we've got to get the spending under control, and I just don't know that the administration...
But what about the president's going to propose this evening, according to all the news accounts, more investment? Read spending. I think that's fair. Investment in this case means government spending.
You're doggone right it does.
Is it dead on arrival for Republicans?
Well, I think so, because anytime Democrats start talking about investment, or at least the president, they're talking about spending more money. And let's face it, we're at $14.3 trillion national debt, going to double in 5 years and triple in 10, like I've said. We can't keep living with that.
In all fairness, Larry, the deficit has doubled in the last 10 years. We're on track to double it again in the next year.
It's a bipartisan problem.
It's a bipartisan problem.
We're going to triple.
What we need, we talked about this a little bit earlier, what we need is a culture of thrift, where we're looking at to replace the culture of spendthrift. We need to look in every nook and cranny of the federal government, discretionary spending, domestic, defense, the entitlement programs, find savings to make sure we're spending money wisely.
Do you expect the president to talk about this kind of culture of thrift and major deficit and spending reduction?
I think he might,
just
to get me off his back. Because I have been hounding him in his administration for months. I think it's the right thing to do. People think we have a culture of spendthrift here. We need to replace that with a culture of thrift to make sure that we're spending money, and whether it's investments for education, you know, there's some of them make a lot of sense, some of them don't. In transportation, some of that makes a lot of sense.
We have a 200% increase in education spending in the last 3 years. I looked it up. 200%. Energy up 150%. EPA up 126%. Transportation, talk about infrastructure, up 75%. How much more can we do?
If we don't get some of this spending under control, and we don't start coming up with a reasonable and good energy policy that helps us to develop our own resources that are certainly capable of being developed, and that we approach things in a way that really will make driving a much more economical thing. I've got to tell you, we're not going to get things under control. And Congress is not known for getting things under control. That's why I'm so strongly for a balanced budget constitutional amendment. Because, as I said, the deficit has climbed 10 times since 1997.
When he was pushing his constitutional balanced budget amendment in the Senate, I was pushing a similar one in the House with Charlie Stenholm. And we actually came pretty close to...
We came close.
Senator Carper, do you expect President Obama to propose a corporate tax cut tonight? That's a huge issue on Wall Street. It's a huge issue for business. And most big businesses and small businesses believe it is the key to competitiveness, not more spending. economy. Do you expect a corporate tax cut proposal?
Yeah. I think he's going to look. He's going to talk about the Deficit Reduction Commission that recommended lower rates and a broader base. And I think my hope is that he'll look back at the Commission's recommendations, or near recommendations, and in order to borrow from their recommendations on the revenue side and on the spending side. They call for deficit reduction for every dollar in revenues, and revenues about $2 in spending cuts.
But Senator Hatch, are you prepared to do business with President Obama and Democrats to get a corporate tax cut?
Sure. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world today. If you go to the G7 rate, the average is about 28%. You go to the G20, you're talking about 23%. We're at 35%. No wonder, in the 1980s, 37 of the top 50 corporations in the world, multinational corporations in the world, were here in this country. Today we have 16.
Corporate tax cut would keep them home.
Well, it would keep them home, plus we need to do some very intelligent things with regard to the carried interest and a whole raft of other things. I have to say that I don't. It's one thing to say you'll cut the 35% rate, but there are many other tax considerations that corporations have to have that we have to work on.
We have to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Do it.
Senator Hatch, appreciate it.